Okay, so it is 2 o'clock, so we're going to get started because I know we've all got weekends to get on to. So I'd like to say thank you very much for coming. We have got 5 or 6 with you. The numbers are greatly reduced because it's a Bsme member only webinar, so it's very, very exclusive. So welcome and thank you for taking the time to join us. Today I'm joined by Mariette Cartstens and I will introduce her in a second. So for those of you that don't know me, some of you I recognise, so some of you will be bored by this slide, but bear with me so that the people who don't know me get to know me. I'm the Bsme Network Leader for Inclusion, and I'm currently the Head of Inclusion at Jumeirah College. Fully qualified in all of the essential qualifications to be a SENCO, and I've been working in SEND for about 20 years. I'm also the parent of 3 children with SEND, which gives me a very different perspective on life and support. And I have had my hair done since the photo was taken, so excuse that. I worked in Hong Kong for 8 years and I've been in Dubai for 9 years. I've been at Wellington International and King's prior to Jumeirah College. The Bsme Networks have started this school year and they've got networks with specific target audiences. So there is currently networks for drama, early years, geography, history, leadership, modern foreign languages, music, primary and secondary English, primary maths, safeguarding science and SEND. There are another 10 or so networks that have come online this month, which I'll update you for next time we meet, which is going to be in March. The networks have an online platform where we can talk and chat and ask questions and get answers from them. So there's a forum there to go and talk, but then also you have the hosted webinars that we do every 2 months. We're doing 6 a year, and each of the networks are doing those 6 a year and teaching and learning. So Mariette is with us today, and she is currently sitting in Bahrain, so she's a little bit earlier than us. She studied over in South Africa in psychology and counselling psychology to begin with, many years ago. She has also studied medical Heilkunst and sequential homeopathy in Ontario, Canada, and she's going to explain what that means later on. In 2000, she moved from South Africa over to the Middle East, and she's been studying and supporting behaviour therapy for over 30 years, which makes her a mine of information to lean on. She supports children with a whole range of identified needs, such as autism, ADD, ADHD, and many, many more. She supports schools and parents, not just parents, although today we are talking about the work that she does with parents, and she prides herself in holistic care, looking at the whole picture, not just one angle. And today we're going to be talking about conscious parenting and play. So I'm going to, at the end of the session with Mariette, we're going to come back for question and answers and give you a time to talk if there's anything you'd like to add. So Mariette, if you'd like to come online and unmute yourself.
Yes, hello.
Welcome. And if anybody's got any questions through, there is a chat on the side. So if you've got any questions throughout the presentation, if you remain muted, but add a chat conversation in the side, and then I can stop Mariette and bring her in for any questions if any arise. If not, we'll just do the question and answers at the end. All right, Mariette?
All right.
Fabulous. Feel free to share your screen when you're ready.
I think you have to give me the host disabled participant screen sharing, Sarah.
That's because we ended the previous one. I thought we were still on the previous one. There we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction. And just to answer the first question, Heilkunst. I studied Heilkunst because I got interested in more natural healing modalities to help the children with, because I realized that behavior is always just a symptom. So people come to me for behavior therapy thinking that the behavior is a problem, but it really isn't. It really is a symptom. There is a problem, And we have to find out what that problem is, what is the cause. And then when we address that cause, then generally I will track my result from tracking that symptom. If that symptom goes away because I address the cause, that makes me really happy. So Heil stands really for healing in terms of the German, and the Kunst, of course, is art. So it is the art of healing through homeopathy as remedies, therapeutic education, and a lot of lifestyle changes. All right, so yes, last year I wrote an online course called From Havoc to Harmony at Home, because I realized that parents needed the skills that I have at home, and they needed to be able to, you know, help themselves at home and really become independent from me. And so my holistic behavior model became a conscious teaching and parenting support model. And then I realized actually that conscious teaching and conscious parenting is kind of this most powerful, most profound personal development project that you will ever be on. Like Louise said as well, because of her children, she has that life experience, and that is what makes her, you know, really effective in her work. So this year I'm also going to write a course for teachers, a conscious teaching course called From Chaos to Cooperation in the Classroom. I really am passionate about that consistency between the two environments in terms of how we are supporting behavior within the classroom and in the home environment. So I think when it comes to supporting parents in this, you know, very, very challenging times, I want to really support them to feel empowered, like they can do their job themselves, because it's very difficult when a parent also keeps on coming back to you as a teacher and they become dependent on you every step of the way. So we want the parents to take that on and really step onto that journey. And a lot of them are actually only now discovering what it really actually takes to teach their children, because now they have to do it at home. So it's hard for them. And they sometimes feel the chaos, and then they want that compliance and that control because that makes them feel safe. But it's, of course, it's not about that. It's about collaboration. It's about cooperation. And it's about that co-creative parenting partnership at home. And parents do need support with that, because once they also have a goal in mind, they want to rush towards that. Instead of understanding it's not about the destination, it really is about the journey with your child. And it's literally the work that we've been born to do. So I will just share with you my top 5 tips for home education hacks. This is what I think just helps parents straight away kind of have a place to start. So my first tip is mirror, mirror on the wall, who is responsible for it all? And for the parent to understand that they've got to take their focus that is on their child off their child and put it on themselves first. It all starts here. So if the parent isn't in a good space when they want to support their child, then the support is not going to happen. A battle of wills are more likely to unfold. Then the parent needs that advice about how to call the child in if they're going to do some work, virtual schooling, homework at home. That invitation needs to be what we call the icebreaker. So down here, I'm literally hammering a block of ice with one of my students, and we're loving it. And that's getting us into the mood. The child is loving sitting down at the table in that moment with you. And then when you're bringing in the material, it needs to be errorless at first. So the tip for the parent would be start with something that the child was good at yesterday, today. Don't bring in the new information straight away. Make sure that you start with something that they're comfortable with, familiar with, and feel good about. Then, since we're all here in the Middle East, these Oreo cookies, oh my goodness, I have a problem with them, but because I'm such a kind of, health fanatic, and nutrition and all of this is so important to me, but I am willing to use anything that makes sense to a child. And so some of them like Oreo cookies, but this is kind of the approach that is a good tip for parents, where you have something easy, which can be your icebreaker. Then the filling is the work. That's the work that you're going to do together, the goal you want to reach today. And then you need to end with the other layer of the biscuits. That's easy again. And the end of the session, I like it to be movement, which I literally call movement medicine. And I give them lots of tips around what movement medicine they can use, because this is how it works. How your session today ends is how the child's neurobiological system remembers what it feels like to spend time with you. So tomorrow, that is what their system will come up with when you say, oh, come, it's time to, whether they're going to resist you or run towards you, depends on how you finish the session the previous day. Then I have a lot of tips around extinction, so that is the process through which we fade out behavior patterns that we don't like, and we're going to look at some tips around that in the presentation. And also a reminder to parents that most of the children are not auditory learners, they are visual learners. So tips around how they can incorporate visual aids, well, that's super helpful for parents. I think parents also need to be aware that we need to update the parenting paradigm. I know that each and every person in this webinar today feel that as well within their own field. I feel it too. I had to update my education, my way of dealing with people. The whole paradigm had to change. How I share information is changing. How we teaching is changing. And so parenting is also in need of that update. So to bring parents out of the helicopter hovering, micromanaging parenting, or sometimes I call it the parenting police, and bring them into the new model, which I call Hummingbird Parenting. And this just comes from when I visited Peru, and I saw the hummingbird, well, I mean, hundreds of them, and they can fly up and down and left and right, and they can go backwards and forwards, and they can hover. So the hummingbird is an extraordinary, dynamic, living creature that has no blockage in its way, so that it can just navigate wherever it wants to go. And so I've got this image that I give parents about the hummingbird landing or a pad where they've got to just, relax into their journey with their child. So they must practice the pause, for example. The moment they're going to become reactive, they are reinforcing the very pattern that they are in reaction to. They need to observe, not absorb. So they need to be in that place where they are really looking at what's going on between them and their child, instead of blaming themselves and not feeling good about themselves, or shaming their child. And why are you doing this to me? Why are you not listening to me? And then to go with the flow and not to force things, because we know by now what we resist persists. And to be the presence instead of the person. So yeah, I'm a person, so it's very easy to take things personally when you are in a moment with your child that's tough. Your mind, the old meaning-making machine, will make that mean something about you as the parent. You're like, oh, I'm not doing well, I'm failing my child. And that is something that parents need to catch themselves doing, and they should stop that. So if you notice a parent doing that, then they are disempowering themselves. And then it's really helpful to put them back in that space where they're more the presence, their higher self, so that they are able to make agreements with their children and get that cooperation and collaboration, instead of being in the chaos. And then there's that need for the control and the compliance. Why? Because when we feel in control, we feel safe. It's also a good reminder to bring parents back to the connection side. And I usually model the connection like this. Here is where the connection should be. The connection is eternal, and it starts with conscious eye contact. From the moment the parent held the baby and the baby made the first eye contact with the parent, and the parent fell head over heels in love, from that moment, it's all about eye contact. Children also avoid eye contact when they don't feel good, when they're not confident, when they feel like we're asking too much of them, they will break eye contact. So a lot of tips can come around getting that conscious eye contact through games, from peekaboo that they play when they're little, all the way up to staring competitions, and also object placement, where I sometimes will place, say, 10 cars on a desk, and I would count down like 3, 2, 1, and then I'll go, which one am I looking at? And I will exaggerate that movement, and so the child will then point to what I am looking at, and then if they're right, I remove it. If they're wrong, then I'll go and we'll start again, and then I extend the counting, and so they learn to track. They learn joint attention, and they actually are expanding their attention span through conscious eye contact. And it really helps a lot with their attention later on. And then to also warn parents about the death stares and, you know, the laser darts. They're all parenting police. The old parenting police, they're off duty. We are the hummingbird parents now. We want that connection. We want that real plug-in with a conscious eye contact. A lot of the time parents will complain to you. They're like, my child is not listening. Well, it starts with effective instructions that, like in business, a good decision is a decision that moves the needle. So the way you instruct needs to move the needle. You need to instruct in a way as a parent that you'll get a yes and stay in the flow. So it's very helpful, for example, if you can help them around the tips with how to instruct, really clear, simple one-step instructions, and then they can build on that and they can expand on that and have multiple steps. But if your child can't follow 3, then it doesn't really help to give them 7 steps. And so it also, I've got some helpful prompts here. So you can say, for example, whatever the child is busy with, we'll call it X. X is finished. It's time for Y. That's a very clear instruction. Or a little countdown. After a while of using just 3, 2, 1, you can just say 3, or you can just show 3, and the child will immediately respond because they've been conditioned up with those visual signs and the habitual use of prompts that are helpful for them. Or you can count for longer to give their minds an opportunity to prepare for transitions. Everything needs to be easy on this level. You want to give your instruction also only once. If parents end up repeating themselves, they are teaching their children not to listen to them the first time. And so that is a habit that they need to break. Also, if you want to repeat the instruction because the child didn't understand or they might not have heard you, that's not a problem. But make sure that your tone and your volume doesn't indicate irritation. Because if you're irritated, that energy that you're putting into the correction is actually strengthening the pattern of the child not listening to you and not responding to you. So one of the important things I also find with instructions is that people voice the instruction like a polite request. A lot of us do this, where we'll say, it's dinner time, please, or do your homework, please. What it should really say is, it is time for, and end with a thank you. That makes it clear to the child that it is a demand that you're actually placing, not a polite request that gives them an opportunity to say no to you, which a lot of them will. Another tip I find is that we have to help parents understand that once they've given a good, great, clear one-step instruction, there is also a difference between a listening skill and following of directions. Those are 2 different skills, and we need to practice those, and we need to take the time to practice them in a playful way so that children are not just getting instructions from us that place a demand, but that they play games with us. Find for me this in, you know, the kitchen and bring it for me to the lounge. Who's going to do it the fastest? Or touch your nose, clap your hands, hands on your head. Now put on your shoes. You want to break the ice a little bit with those games. And now children are relaxing and they're having fun while they're listening to us and following our directions. This kind of motor imitation or receptive instruction, compliance training, which I like to call cooperation training rather, We do this all the time at schools, right? When children line up, when they're waiting for the assembly to start. But it's a really good tip for parents to also use at home, and also to remind them that a lot of the youngsters will simply shut down if they've been sitting down for too long. So the parent needs to come in and play a couple of games, let them move around, and then present them with the clear instruction of what they need to listen to and the following up of that when they follow the direction. Here, of course, your instructions, your listening, and your following of directions can be paired with various visual aids. And I'm sure you have an arsenal of them. The I Want board is kind of like one of the simplest things that you can do. And on that board, for a verbal or non-verbal child, this is extremely supportive, because they could ask for a drink that way. They can get a tissue. They can ask for the toilet. They can ask for a break from you or the material. They can have a sensory break. They might be hungry. So even when they don't want something on their board, they will often choose something from the board. And when you are sitting for long periods of time and using your mind, you need that movement, you need that break, and you get hungry. And so a lot of the time, the child might get up and come to the parent, I'm hungry. And the fridge, oh my goodness, we all actually have felt that in the times that we've had to spend more time at home. Now we keep on opening the fridge and getting up. Well, that is your need to move. And that is because you need energy to come back into your body. So the visual aid with regards to meeting needs and bringing a child back to communicating those needs, it removes a lot of those small little triggers that wears the nervous system down, and then everybody is calmer and more present, and it's easy to also, when a child just do this, a lot of them will just reach out and just want what they want that way. You say I want water. Bring them back to the language. For the younger ones, children that are nonverbal can sign, they can use pics, but yes, visual aids are extremely supportive, and it saves this voice. First and next is also a very powerful tip for parents. How they can use first and next. Well, they're going to start with asking their child, I'm going to pair it with a little bit of signing as well. What do you want? And then they can tap their chest and they just go, I want, and prompt the child to ask for what they want, to sign for what they want, hand a picture of what they want. And then the parent can go, okay, great. First, we're going to do then what the parent wants to do. Next, you put what the child asked for. When you are using what you want to do next to what the child wants to do, you're actually working with that powerful conditioning up of those two, non-preferred a lot of the time with a preferred. That close connection makes that non-preferred preferred too quickly. And then you have another thing that you can actually place in the next box. It is as simple as drawing those lines on a piece of paper and putting a Lego block in the next, and then 1, 2, 3, because you're doing number work in the now box. It makes it more predictable, it makes it visual, and it teaches the children to ask for what they want, to wait for what they want, to earn it, to use impulse control, have a longer attention span, and start to develop self-regulation. Visual schedules, of course, are super effective. What would we be? We would just not be if we didn't have visual schedules. Whether you have one in your class, on the cupboard, or whether you have a visual schedule on your phone of what your day looks like, we all need it. If you don't know what the flow of your day looks like, and you cannot mentally and emotionally make those ticks next to your tasks and the requirements of you of that day, you will be anxious, you will be nervous, you will feel out of control. And then you become more resistant because then you are trying to be more in control of your day so you can feel safe. So visual schedules at home during these times are, they are incredibly supportive of children and parents. It makes the children more independent with that routine and structure that the parent puts in place. The day is predictable. When you know what you're going to do and you feel in control, you feel safe. There's a nice flow and ease to the day. All the agreements that of what should be done for today is clear to everybody, right there on the wall at home. When there's a sudden change and you know that a child might have a hard time with change, then you can also put that warning for them on their timeline. That as well will help them then relax into the day, because children already have had so much change this year that they do find more change, tiny little changes, actually quite difficult to respond to in a positive manner. The most important part of the visual schedule at home, as a tip for parents, would be to make sure that it builds in reinforcing value. So you cannot put something that your child hates to do after the iPad. If you're going to have electronics, for example, if there's a game that they like, if there's an activity that they like, those activities need to build throughout the day in their reinforcing value. And you cannot put something that is non-preferred after such a strongly preferred activity, because then you're actually triggering the resistance. There are lots of opportunities for communication around visual schedules. And my personal favorite, it teaches energetic independence. Children plug into us and they kind of need our support, which is why we feel so drained when we put them to bed at night. And parents will really feel that at the moment, because they are taking energies from our systems. So with a visual schedule and more independence, you are teaching that energetic independence for a child. And it's also quite clever because you can just walk over to it and say, again, what do you want? And they'll say X on the schedule. Then you go, okay, X is over here. Now it's time for Y, and you show them where they are at. Or if they're really giving you a tough time, then you just go to the one they really like and you start removing, that picture from the sequence. And then you're like, well, we need to maybe put it somewhere else. Or do you still want this? They'll go, yes. Then okay, great. Then you just redirect them to where they need to be so that they see the flow of how they have to go to get to what they want. And they're pretty good with this. So when a parent comes to you and they're saying, oh my goodness, I'm having such a hard time, we're having all these arguments, we're having all these tantrums, then I will just, kind of very briefly go into that today. But the thing that happens to most parents when they feel that resistance from their child is they themselves become resistant. And they themselves want to kind of get that control back because they feel out of control in that moment as well. But the opposite needs to happen. The first phase of this extinction of this pattern of resistance of you would be to just melt into this kind of a space, safe space that you're going to hold, coming from a feminine space. We all have a feminine and masculine energies within ourselves. But you first, as a parent, need to prepare yourself to deal with that resistance instead of dealing with the resistance. Once you prepare yourself to deal with it, it's much easier to actually then go to the next phase where you will follow through. So you will use your eye contact by not having very intense eye contact, but kind of more, looking at them instead of having very extreme, passionate eye contact that communicates your frustration. And you are going to stop talking about the behavior. You're going to be very relaxed. If you want to say something, you can just say something about redirecting them in a very calm way, or reminding them that you're there, and if they stop, you will talk. And then you kind of wait it out with them without a lot of emotion, a completely neutral state of mind, the poker face. Then you just wait it out until your child is also ready to work on it. But it starts with the parent. Sorry. Phase 2 is the follow through. So this is the more masculine energy. This is when we are now relaxed. We're in that feminine space. We're keeping that feminine energy going, but now we are going to follow through. And this is kind of more a masculine energy where we have an expectation. We know that our child is capable of doing it. And now we're going to go for the follow through. We're going to try and help them as little as possible so they're more independent. And if we cannot win that moment, we're just going to take the wind out of the sails and wait the whole thing out. When it's actually a big tantrum, it's better to wait that tantrum out with your full presence and your support in that space. And when the child is calm and they manage now to process information, then you can just reconnect with them and give it kind of a 3-second count, like 3, 2, 1 after the tantrum. So there is that little quiet space. If you turn back and you respond and the tantrum stopped, and the moment that stopped you respond, you're actually still reinforcing the tantrum. So you want to fade this behavior pattern out. So you don't actually want to stop the pattern. Patterns are faded out. They don't stop. You can stop behavior in a moment by shouting and screaming and losing your cool, but tomorrow the child will do it again because you reinforced it, because you put so much energy into it. So this is really helpful for parents to make this distinction of start with yourself, calm yourself down, and then wait for your child to be calm, because no one is listening or processing information while they are upset, not you nor your child. And to remember that children use what works. So if the behavior is not going to work anymore, they are going to stop doing it. So the third phase of extinction is plugging back in. So I said for me, this represents the connection and this represents the energy exchange with the child. So that first phase was we keep the connection and we separate the energy exchange so that we're not putting our energy into that pattern. And then we follow through. And now our child is back on task. So now we plug back in. So now we're going to use our eye contact. We're going to use lots of emotion. We're going to use a lot of words. And we are going to talk about what we want to see. Behavior therapy is super simple. If you see something that you like, speak about it. You will see it again. If you see something that you don't like and you speak about it, you'll see that again, because you're feeding that pattern with your attention. And what is attention? Attention is your energy that you are placing on a project, a person, or a place. So we have to work with that, because we are part of the problem through that energetic exchange, and we can use it to our advantage and solve the problem with that energetic exchange. So we want to make it very clear for children that they get this when they're on track and they get this when they're off track. And we're going to deal with them. So the connection never breaks. There's no break in the connection. That's an eternal a connection that is there from the relationship, a given. It's just that we are not part of the problem at that moment. So we also need to warn parents about the extinction birth, because they'll just be coming to you and go like, oh, it's not working. It's worse than before. Well, that's the extinction birth. It does get worse before it gets better sometimes, because children are very clever. All they will just think is, if I scream louder, if I try harder, she will give in, because they are also used to a lot of inconsistencies. Mom and dad's maybe not on the same page with how they manage behavior outbursts. So mom and dad maybe have tried many things, and sometimes just about that moment before the technique will actually work, that is when they give up because of the extinction burst. So we have to warn them about that and say, no, it's working. Come back to me. You'll see. It will get worse before it gets better. And then, they know what to expect and they're ready for that. a lot of the time, behavior and anger is really a mask for anxiety. And so here are some of my favorite tips that I would give parents. For the child to squeeze their hands, nice deep pressure, for them to rub their legs, and to take those deep breaths, and to begin to use their visualization, thinking about their dog, walking with their dog in the park, because you want to bring children out of that survival mode that is triggered when they feel threatened. And so we know the jelly legs, we know the sweaty palms, and so just these very simple techniques can calm them down. This is a beautiful book. Here at the bottom, I've got a resource for you. I usually laminate it because it's kind of like an activity book, and then you can use it with more than one child or more than once. The traffic light is super helpful for parents as a visual aid. Of course, the children start in the green. And what I like about the traffic light, of course, is the orange, because that's their moment to correct themselves. They never even need to have a consequence. They never need to go to the red. And then they are actually learning to make better choices, and the parent saves their voice. This is another traffic light that I find is super useful for parents. Actually, the more effective one I found these days, the independence one. So a lot of parents will ask me to help them with the fact that their children have learned helplessness and that they are prompt dependent. So basically, they will only do their virtual schooling when the parent is sitting next to them. And the moment the parent stands up, nothing gets done. So this is a good way to keep that flow and build on that independence. So the blue arrow gets cut out and is placed on the green. The child knows what to do. The parent just walks by, never sits, shows the thumbs up. Yes, you're doing it. And then when the child has a little issue, they put the blue arrow in the yellow. Again, the parent doesn't step in immediately, because a lot of children will just get stuck the moment they have one thing that they're struggling with. So we want them to be able to skip number 13 and go on with number 14 until the teacher or the parent has the time to come back to them and then attend to where it was that they are stuck. Or they can put it in the red because what they are struggling with is a missing skill. So they actually cannot do the work. Then when the parent comes and helps them out, the parent needs to remain very calm, very neutral. Don't give too much like, oh, this is really so hard, and wow, they're asking too much. Sometimes parents make these comments about the work because, yes, they are sometimes shocked at what it is that the children can do at the ages that they can do it these days, because they are still in effect of the parenting they receive. They still in effect of the teaching they received, and they are not 100% always clued up with how much the children are doing and where teaching is even at the moment. So for a lot of them, this was kind of a huge wake-up call last year, and it will continue to be this year, of wow, the children are really more evolved than what we were when we were their age. So this is very helpful. And yes, so this is just a couple of tips that I have for you today. It actually, it links to next weekend's webinar as well. The recording that I made, I just changed some of it, and because we need strategies to be consistent in both home and school, and parents and teachers really work so well together when they understand that they're coming from a shared paradigm. And to always remind parents to fly with this, they need to first love themselves. If they are not looking after themselves, if they're not looking at the number one relationship, they're kind of in the state of loss of self, they really are going to struggle with a child that's a little bit more difficult to manage. And to also remember that, you know, relationship is the guru of growth. Like I said in the beginning, it is the most profound personal development project that you'll ever be on. And so this situation that we are in right now with blended and virtual learning is an opportunity for a lot of parents to reconnect with their children, to actually understand exactly where they are at, to meet them where they are at, and for everybody involved to grow. So I'm here for you. If you need any other support, you're more than welcome to contact me. And thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you today. That's my passion, so I love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mariette. There's lots and lots of nice and useful tips there. If you collapse your screen, I can put my screen back up.
Yeah.
And provide your contact details, hopefully. And you can tell me that I've got them right or I've got them wrong if you prefer to use a different email address. So I've got you down as Mariette Cartstens at childrensacademybahrain.com.
No, please not to use the school email because I'm a consultant. So at the moment it is all private. Yes.
Okay, so would you give me your other email address then, and I'll add that. But you can do that later. That's fine. Okay.
Yes, I'll just put it in the chat as well.
Put it in the chat. Yes, that would be amazing. Okay, so no questions have come through at the moment. So we don't have any topics for conversation. Is there anything that anybody would like to add or say? You can just unmute yourself and bring yourself in. No. There you go, Mariette, you've got off nice and easily there. I remember when my children were younger, one of the things that used to get them off the computer was always food. So I would always put a food break into after, because you said about bringing them off the iPad to do something they don't want to do is not going to be successful. So I always did the iPad just before lunch. So they have to come off it because they always want food.
Always food.
Always food. Okay, so over on the Bsme Networks site, there are webinars for every network. So whether you're interested in the English or the maths or the geography, you are still able to go. All the webinars that are taking place, we're doing them this weekend and next weekend. And there's currently 11 webinars on right now, so we compete quite a lot for the audience. So you are able to go onto the networks and look at the other webinars at your leisure. Once this finishes, what we do is we upload the recording. So do feel free to go and look at all the other networks, and feel free to share them widely with all your other members at school. Join any other network that you like and watch the other recordings. Okay. If you've got any questions, just pop up with, just unmute yourself. Next webinar is going to be on the 18th of March, if you want to put that into your diaries, and that is going to be about the training and development of LSAs and creating a robust inclusion department. If you think I'm weird looking up there, it's because my slides are up there, even though you're down there. And then don't forget, next weekend, sign up for the Inclusion Conference. This is a 2-day conference. It is phenomenal value. We've got Grania doing 3 sessions on executive functioning and identifying children. Bronwyn is a dyslexia expert. She's got a program out called Picture This, and she's going to talk to us about how we can use images to help with spelling and reducing dyslexia barriers. Catherine O'Farrell is coming on to talk about well-being. Mariette's coming back again to talk about a bit more about some parenting skills. Rachel Green-Smith is coming on to talk about your environments at school and how you can reduce triggers within the environment and support children in that way. Adam is coming on to talk about occupational therapy, if you know Adam, and Jazz is coming on to talk about speech and language therapy. Catherine Booth is coming on from Pearson. She's going to talk about pathways. So within Pearson's, you've got your GCSEs and your A-levels, and then we know that there's the BTEC route, and we know there's the IB route. But a lot of our students with special needs may be below GCSE level. So they have got the entry levels and the level 1 qualifications. So she's going to come in and talk to us about that to help us widen our offering in schools out here. Siobhan is coming on to talk about the Sendia Award. She's the first successful person in the UAE to get that. So she's coming on to share her tips with us. And Tamsin's coming on to talk about Makaton. Haneen is coming on to talk about executive function with Grania. I'm going to be around a little bit. I'll be hosting the sessions. I've got 2 talks to do, and I'll be hosting all the question and answers throughout the 2 days. Abigail Hawkins is coming on to talk about outcomes and how we can measure outcomes for children. And then our guest appearance is from Daniel on the Saturday. He's doing 3 sessions on 3 variety of If you want the actual full program, do let me know and I will share that with you. The full program is on the website. If you can't remember the whole registration link, BSME Professional Learning, just put into Google BSME conferences and it will take you straight there. The dirhams is about 854 members. I've put that price up because you're members, but if you've got friends who are non-members, it's still only 950 dirhams. But for that, you get unlimited teachers having access. So that's a price for the whole school. So your entire inclusion team can come online and watch parts of the conference. So there's only about 3 hours of live, and it sort of does a morning hour and a midday hour and an end of the day hour. So join us for the live and the conversations. But the other sessions will be recorded. And at the end of the session, the 2 days, everything will be recorded and you will be able to watch that at your leisure. And you can use those videos then for training sessions within your school. So I think it is phenomenal value at 850 dirhams. And that is all that we have got for you today, unless I've got any chats. And I don't think I've got any chat questions. Anyone? This is your last chance, because we're going off air and we finished early, so we can get down to having some dinner very soon. Mariette, thank you very, very much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying Bahrain, and we will see you all next week. Thank you for saying thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend, Rachel. Thanks for joining us. And Priyanka, thank you. Thank you, Avril.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks.